Okay, we've got some more. Football Forecast End of Year Awards. We did a few last week. We did Rookie of the Year and a few others I can't remember right now, but go and check them all out on ESPN. We're going to do Manager of the Year this time. Now, broad question, does the Manager of the Year have to be the person who's won the league? Kim, the Man City fan, what do you think?
No, absolutely not. Not necessarily at all, because I think there's different expectations on different clubs, and they're working with different financial resources and different players and stuff like that. I think Pep Guardiola won't win Manager of the Year even if he wins the league, which will have been 4 in a row. And I think that's a little bit harsh.
Yeah.
A little bit harsh, because it's an unprecedented achievement, and it would be a nice recognition of his work as a manager. I know lots of things get thrown at City about the money they spend, all of that kind of thing, but what Guardiola's done there is incredible, and he's created an unstoppable winning machine. But I think there are managers this year who have done more unexpected things, maybe not more impressive, but more unexpected things with much less resources and much lower quality of players.
Great link into the nominees that we've got for Manager of the Year. So we're not going to have Pep in this one, but we've got 4 different options that we're going to discuss and then put forward our final decision at the end of it all. With that in mind, and I think the thing for me when I think about it is the difficulty for Guardiola is that expectation is that you've hit that, but that's also the highest quality you can find in football. So that is a bit brutal. I think what's interesting with some of these other guys is going from an expectation at the start of the season and where you find yourself after that, and also what you've got to deal with along the way. With that in mind, let's go to you first, Harry. Unexpected choice from you.
I thought you'd say that. Look, I wasn't
one of your own.
Yeah, I wasn't his biggest fan when he was in charge of Arsenal, and I made no secret of that. But Unai Emery, for me, deserves the Manager of the Season award. To Kim's point about sort of managers that win the league tend to get that award, it's true, but I don't think it should always be like that. I think we need to zoom out a little bit and look at what this guy's achieved. He's come in and he's taken Aston Villa onto a whole new level, and that began last season. But this was the first full season we've seen of Unai Emery in charge of that football club, and the progress has been unbelievable. I think he's shown adaptability. I think he's worked on building a rapport with the Aston Villa fans. And so what that shows me is that after the Arsenal experience, okay, he went on and done another job after that, but coming back to the Premier League for the second time, he learnt from the mistakes that he made in the past. And he's worked really, really hard to get people on side, to implement his style of play. Villa's a good place to be as well, because it's a big enough club with enough resources to kind of play the football that you want up to like 80-90%, but you're also not quite at that status where you're expected to win every single game. And so if you need to kind of batten down the hatches on occasions and do that, you can do that, and that's fine as well without people judging you. So I think he's found the balance really, really well, and I think he's done a cracking job there.
Yeah, I think in terms of the players that were there and how they've developed from the manager before and Steven Gerrard, where it went completely wrong, and also just the general baseline of what Aston Villa was prior to him coming in to where they are now. It's interesting that, I think even at the start of this year, I think a lot of people would have had them 8th, 7th. I had them a bit higher, but others didn't. And I think the expectations and dealing with European football as well. I think also I had him down as quite a slightly sort of negative manager, and I think he's kind of blown that away as well. He's had an incredible time. I'm going to put forward 2, and I'm going to kind of put them together with the sort of expectations, but also with what you've got to kind of deal with. And that is Iola, who took over from the second person that I want to talk about, which is Gary O'Neill. First of all, Iola, I think stepping into that job when you've got a manager who's actually done quite a good job and has supposedly exceeded expectations is a tricky area to sort of step into. So you need to be able to get buy-in, which I think Gary O'Neill's obviously done brilliantly as well. So again, once he leaves, and you've got to go and get that same buy-in from that group of players, that's a lot to ask. And some people weren't sure about him, but he's done absolutely fantastically. And then the second part of it is that it was a difficult start of the season for them, but he's absolutely turned it around. They're playing great football, scoring goals. They've got their own identity, a lot of dribblers in there, a lot of pace, a lot of hard work. Christie in midfield, I've really enjoyed in terms of seeing him in a different role there. It shows that they want to play by having him in there. Solanke scoring goals. It's great squad building. I think it's a very well-run club. And I think to that, Bournemouth as a club deserves some plaudits there for being brave enough to make that change and getting rid of someone who is the next nominee, which is Gary O'Neill. And again, stepping into that scenario where you've got someone like Lopetegui and you've got to fill his shoes, whilst there's a team that I think a lot of us had him predicted to be right down there because lack of goals, lack of investment, the thought that they might have to sell players as well. The sales didn't really come, so that maybe helped him a little bit, but he needed to get that buy-in quickly, and he did. And I wouldn't have been surprised at all if by December he'd have been gone. But I think he's done absolutely fantastically to step in there and get that buy-in and get those players excited. You know, the goals that Cunha scored this year, Hwang as well, but two players that have really been struggling for some time. I think he's done fantastically. Wins against Tottenham, Chelsea, Man City as well this season. 90 more goals than last season, so a better brand of football as well. I can't give either of them enough plaudits. You've gone for someone different who, again, has probably had to deal with more than anyone else, actually.
Yeah, I think Sean Dyche has done an absolutely exceptional job this year. I mean, we're so very complimentary of Brighton and De Zerbi, but without the points deductions, Everton would be on the same points as them. And I think when you compare the two squads in terms of quality, that in itself is an absolutely outstanding achievement. They've got 5 more wins than last year, 3 less losses. I think 13 better goal difference. Apart from Arsenal, they've got the most clean sheets and scored the most set pieces. And I think it's understandable in this era of sort of social media football that Sean Dyche doesn't get his plaudits because the football isn't fancy and it's not amazing to watch. It just often isn't. And I think it's fine to agree with that. But what he's done is he's made Everton incredibly hard to beat amidst point deductions twice, complete chaos in the board and ownership and takeovers and are they happening, are they not happening? There's been financial uncertainty and he's actually spent very little money in the summer.
And a goal scorer couldn't score a goal.
And a goal scorer who couldn't score a goal. Calvert-Lewin spends a lot of time on the sidelines, and he's got players like Dwight McNeil, who you would think when Everton bought him, probably not up to the standard. Jack Harrison got relegated with Leeds, and he's bought those players, and they're all performing very, very well. They're all performing for him, and I think the job he's done is absolutely fantastic. And I would actually have him as the manager of the year.
Yeah. So despite the great monologue I went on. And also Harry as well. We've got Unai Emery, Iola, Gary O'Neill, and Sean Dyche. You're not moving from Sean Dyche. It's got to be him for you.
Yeah, I think. Look, I love City, right? So I'm going to go for Pep Guardiola because
well, it should be Marty Cifuentes then if it's that.
because I think he's done an absolutely exceptional job. I think if Arsenal win the league, I think what Arteta's done there is absolutely incredible, and he should certainly win manager of the year. But As it currently stands, if Pep Guardiola is not going to win it and we're not going to give it to the manager who wins the league, I think what Dyche has had to deal with and what he has done and the way that he's improved Everton, it would be him for me. Although, as you mentioned, Emery has done a fantastic job as well. I
think it's a really good point because people are screaming at this video right now that we didn't put Arteta in our initial nominees here because we're recording this before the final day. I would say that if Arsenal win it, I think Arteta deserves it. Absolutely. I think to deal with the noise, I think, is a huge part of football these days. And for sort of the supposed sort of weak mindset that was there at Arsenal, to go and get more points than last year, to deal with this run of games, and for me, a really tough back end of fixtures. And they've done so well. And I think generally it's often because of his brilliance, of his coaching, and his development of those players. So if Arsenal do win it, I would give it to Arteta. If not, I think it's got to be Unai Emery for me.
Yeah, the only reason I would take it away from Unai Emery is, as you say, if Mikel Arteta was to win the league, because I think that would be just an incredible achievement for all the reasons that you've mentioned. The reason I can't personally have Sean Dyche, I think when you mention all the things he's had to deal with, I completely agree with you. And I think people often underestimate how much of an impact stuff behind the scenes at a football club can actually have in a dressing room. You don't know what your future looks like. There's uncertainty. How can you stay focused on the task in hand when there's so much else going on? But Andoni Iraola and Gary O'Neill are proof that you can coach to a higher standard, in my opinion, and play a better standard of football, even with a side that is under-resourced in comparison. And I look at Sean Dyche and I think Sean Dyche, for me, has never really evolved. It's the same core principles that we've seen from Sean Dyche all throughout his time. And he said this year, he said something along the lines of keeping Everton up is my biggest achievement. Didn't he finish 7th or so with Burnley? Surely that is a bigger achievement.
Is that just him highlighting the troubles that are there?
Yeah, maybe. But the size of Everton Football Club, I know they've had a difficult season because of the off-the-field stuff, but being in the league is not Everton going above and beyond. That's the absolute minimum that I expect from Everton. And we're heaping loads of praise on him because they are staying in the division.
I think there's so many things that could alter the mindset of the group, as you've said there. And so I think he is the perfect person to be there at that time.
Yeah.
I think there's a different video, different conversation for what's his ceiling and how far can he take Everton. And Everton, with a new stadium, once they've sorted out their finances, once they've got a new owner, that's maybe a different being. But I think you have to give him some credit for this season. Because I think they've played well as well.
I think they've played quite well. And I think there's a difference between standard and style. Because Jose Mourinho doesn't have a particularly alluring style. If you're going to talk about Gary O'Neill and Iraola, they probably play better football. Sean Dyche just has a style which we as viewers might not like to watch that much, but I don't think that the standard is much worse, because I think if the standard was much worse, he wouldn't be level on points with Brighton without the deduction. So I think they've played okay football. It's not something which I would love to pay for week in, week out, because it just doesn't get you off your seat, and that is fine. But it does the job, and with everything going on in the background, doing the job to the standard that he's done it, I think deserves a bit of recognition.
I'm not saying that he shouldn't get any recognition, and I'm not saying that he isn't even worthy of a place in this conversation. I just can't put him above any of those other names that we've mentioned. That doesn't mean he's done a bad job. In terms of the style, I think he's a problem solver. I think that's what Sean Dyche is. He comes in at a football club. He looks at the fact that, as you mentioned, he's got no real goal scorer, no real goal threat. So what do? You focus on the defensive side of the game to make up the shortfall that you have up front. That's why I see him as a problem solver. Will he ever be able to take a team, though, to another level? I would back Gary O'Neill to do that, and I would back Andoni Iraola to do that over him.
And that's what Unai has done.
Yeah,
and I would agree with all of that, but I don't think that means that they have had a better season. I think what he's had to deal with and what he has done means that this individual season is a better season than they have had. Although I agree, his ceiling is certainly lower than all three of those managers. I mean, Unai Emery is an incredible boss.
Let's put it to the people. What do you think? Sean Dyche or Unai Emery or any of the other nominees? Let us know in the comments down below.